Hi, and welcome to the Right to Remain Silent podcast. I'm Jim Weber, your host and guide through actual accounts of intriguing and fascinating true crime stories as told by the law enforcement professional that experienced the event. The Right to Remain Silent podcast makes no exaggeration of fact, doesn't glamorize details, or sensationalize reality. The format here is basic. Real stories from real cops. Lastly, please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share. Doing this will help me continue to provide you, the listener, with captivating and relevant true crime stories. Now, let's listen in on today's episode. Hi, and welcome to the Right to Remain Silent True Crime Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Weber, and today I am honored to be joined by Thomas Drago Dzieran, a man whose life story defines courage, resilience, and patriotism. Welcome to the show, Drago.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for the invitation, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
great to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, before we start, I just wanted to share a little bit about you for the benefit of the listeners. You grew up under the harsh grip of communist and socialist rule in Poland. You were imprisoned for expressing your views and standing up against the regime, but you ultimately found freedom in the United States. And after arriving in the U.S., it's an amazing story. You taught yourself English. You worked multiple jobs. You became a proud United States citizen. And on top of that, you became a decorated military hero. So this is, I don't like this term, but this is almost a rags to riches story.
I need to step in. Yes, I don't like this term. I'm not a hero. I'm just an American, and I reserve the word hero for those of our military members, first responders, and law enforcement officers that lost their lives fighting for our values and fighting for America and save America. So I'm just American. I think the most proudest way I would describe myself is I'm American. There is no hyphen in front of this American.
I
Thank you.
completely understand. Yep. Thank you. Well, in along those same lines, I'd like to read your bio. You have an official, like a professional bio, and I want to read that so folks that are listening in today can learn more about you, to know about you, to know where you came from and what you achieved. So, would it be all right if I read your bio?
Absolutely.
All right, will do. Here we go. Drago was born in Poland while under communist rule, and after spending time in a communist prison for his activism against the socialist oppression, he immigrated to the United States in 1984. He became a United States citizen in 1991 and enlisted in the Navy that same year. During his Navy career, he was a member of SEAL Team 2, SEAL Team 4, and a BUDS instructor at Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, California. He performed over 100 combat direct action missions as a lead breacher while deployed to Iraq in 2003, 2004, and 2005. There, he developed a new breaching method and a specialized breaching charge that minimized fragmentation and reduced potential injuries to non-combatants. This breaching charge allowed SEAL assault elements a smaller standoff distance from the explosive breach and became widely used by SEALs throughout Iraq, saving many non-combatants' lives. Drago was awarded the Bronze Star Medal with V for Valor, the Navy Commendation Medal with V for Valor, and the Army Commendation Medal, along with other awards and decorations. Following his honorable retirement after 20 years in the Navy, he began a successful career as a software engineer. He founded the Navy SEALs Fund, a nonprofit with the mission of providing support for all generations of current, retired, and former UDT and SEAL teammates and their immediate dependents, as well as Gold Star families. Drago also founded Connect Zing, a freedom of speech platform that gives a voice to all Americans without the worry of censorship or socialist fact checkers. That's an incredible bio. It stands out in a powerful way.
Thank you. But this is, again, this is America. Everything is possible. You can be whoever you are able to be. There is nothing to stop you. There is no communist party, at least, hopefully will never be, that is looking over your shoulder and decide if you can progress in the society or you have to be squashed and either spend time in prison or being denigrated and destroyed. So we are living in America, free country. We can be whoever we really want to be and are able, the most important, whoever we are able to be. And I'm grateful for that opportunity to live my American dream. Please remember that my chance to live as a free man is only possible because of the ideals the founding fathers fought for and that have been carried forward by Americans like you, like my fellow Americans. That's why I can live as a free man. So I would like to first express my gratitude to American people for my freedom. And also, please remember, everything that I have today, I owe to America and American people. Not only this, but also my family, my wife, my beautiful wife. I would never have it if I was not if I didn't live here, if I was not American. So that's for that I'm grateful. Thank you to all Americans.
Right, right. And I'm confident all Americans are thankful to you for what you did here in America and taking advantage of the opportunities here. You know, and I was thinking about today and getting ready to talk with you, and I thought there's so many shows and podcasts out there in the world today where they have these people that are educated or PhDs and they express their opinions on everything. That's fine and good, but I think it's very important to hear firsthand from an individual that's experienced the things that you've experienced. So I think that this is a great opportunity for listeners. The great thing about a podcast is it could be heard around the world. And I think it's a great opportunity for an individual such as yourself that's experienced these things and is knowledgeable to share your story. So let's, having said that, the way I normally operate at the start of the podcast is I like to ask each guest why it was they got into their career, why they got into the military or why they got into law enforcement. But I want to pause that and do it a little bit differently today. We're going to talk about that with you, but I think it will be understood more by listeners if we address that, like why you got into the Navy, if we could address that later in our conversation while actually discussing your military career. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and start talking about your experiences in your life in Poland. If you could just share your story, being born there, living there, your childhood and growing up into a young adult, and the experiences that you had under socialism and communist rule in that time frame in that part of the world.
Thank you. Oh, absolutely. I think it is very important that people understand the socialism, communism, and the leftist ideologies that are so dangerous. I'm not really surprised, but I'm kind of the enamoration of our young people, a young section of our society with socialism and communism, not so maybe communism, but socialism, for me, it is very disturbing. And another thing is that our voices, people like me or people who escape socialism and communism, are being suppressed today not by the government, by being suppressed by organizations like Facebook, YouTube, like mine. My podcast very quickly get curtailed and shut down by YouTube because it's very inconvenient to these socialists and Marxists working in these businesses and organizations to know the truth. But this is not only my story is nothing unusual to. It may be unusual here for American citizens, for American people, but that is nothing unusual for people living behind the Iron Curtain. I am maybe a little bit more successful in building my life in America, and maybe more my voice can be heard. But again, it is being heavily censored today on Facebook, or even more so on YouTube, and the attacks by the YouTube bots are, for me, they are funny because there's nothing new for me. I'm familiar with it, although in different technical realm. When I was growing up in Poland, the censorship was not different than today we see on YouTube, but there was maybe not as technical as it is. So I think it is important that people can hear about these systems from people who survive these ideologies and these economical systems. But the first thing I would like to make the point that what we call today communist countries behind Iron Curtain as communist countries, well, none of these were technically a communist country. Not even Soviet Union was communist country. They were all socialist states, very inconvenient to some people in America, but they were socialist states. There is a narrative being pushed on dumb people or people with not maybe intellectually not very well, that socialism is just building the roads, building school, financing the military and first responders. Well, if this is the definition of socialism, then the Taliban would have to be a socialist state, Saudis, Morocco, and Pakistan would be socialist countries. We know they are not. And this is not the definition of socialism. The problem with socialism is that it is an excellent tool to control society, to stay in power for morally bankrupt individuals who have no scruples. So socialism is dangerous, and is even more dangerous than communism, I would say, because under the disguise of the making good for other people, they enslaved entire societies and entire nations. So in Eastern Europe, people already learned about their tricks and about how socialism works. America was never exposed to socialism on larger scale. So as people are a little bit more naive and ready to accept some of the what socialists describe goodies of socialism, but at the price of freedom and price of national identity. So yeah, so that's one very important thing to distinguish.
Yep.
That socialism is a very dangerous system, and it is not what they teach you or they tell you on some of the pro-Marxist universities and colleges. We did lose the educational battle, the fight for the souls of. But this is not the war. We didn't lose the war yet for the souls and identity of the nation, but we lost the battle when the younger generation comes out enamored with dangerous ideology like socialism, Nazism. Well, Nazism, I mean, let's take a look closer at this. National socialism, whether it is National Socialism or Bernie Sanders socialism or any other Khrushchev socialism or Joseph Stalin socialism, they all have the same thing in common. It's a censorship, heavy censorship. Is political prisoners and political assassinations as well. So this is very dangerous, and I think people need to start educating themselves. And also, please notice the recent within the last 4 years, attacks on our moral values, attacks on our family values, attacks on our patriotism, and especially attacks on our children, because these goons, these Marxist goons, and they are everywhere. They are in our country too. They are in both parties, but these goons are not targeting anymore people like me, like you, because they know that our values are, our moral values are pretty much immutable. We know who we are. So they concentrate on attacking and confusing our children. And this is why it is important now to monitor what our children are learning at schools and correct it in if this is not something that is moral.
I would agree with that. And, you know, I have, I'm a little bit older, but I have some young kids, teenage kids, and I make it a consistent practice to, on a daily basis, discuss with them how school was, how it started, how the day unfolded, and how it ended, and what went on at school, and what happened in each class, and what was taught. And I think that that's just the way I am. I'm curious, number one, and number two, I want to see what's going on in my world, in my children's world. And I think that a lot of people in today's world overlook that, and they overlook the things that you're saying. And I think an individual like you that actually lived that and went through that, were exposed to that when you were growing up as a child, and then you come to America, I think you're very astute or very aware of how these things work and how they unfold. So I think that's a very valid and interesting point that you mentioned about the last 4 years or recently here in the United States.
It's almost like deja vu from the former communist countries of Eastern Bloc. You are absolutely right. Today, it is not enough to ask a child, well, how was your school today? Oh, well, it was great. Okay, go play. No, this is how the perversion, the depravity of morally bankrupt people take roots. Because we need to inquire today, we need to inquire a little bit more deeply into what kids learn at schools. And if you don't counteract that ideological perversion or moral perversion thrown on our kids in some of our schools, we're going to end up with a perverted society. And we need to be more active. Like I pull my kids out of schools, we homeschool them. And today, the morally bankrupt segment of our society that want to get control of our children, they will try to establish laws. It is normal in any socialist state that they will establish the laws that will allow them to control society. And same with children. Like if you disagree with it, if you don't teach children something what the socialist state or what the socialists want, they will try to either take away the children or at least counteract your narrative. And I experienced that in a communist country. I'm saying communist because we all, this is the way we call it. So, but technically they were socialist states. Mm-hmm. But when I was in the 5th grade, I remember, at that time I was not so much political. I knew that we are living in a socialist state because it was taught to us at school that this is just the progression towards communist society, that is a stepping stone. I really did not understand much of it. But one day when in 5th grade, when we were forced to learn Russian language, and in Russia was more perceived as a political occupiers of Poland at the time. So I expressed my opinion at school. I said, why do we learn Russian language? Because when some of us don't even speak Polish very well. And there was nothing political at the time. I just blurted up because I was not the best student at school, and I didn't want to have another extra subject to do the homework with and take my time when I wanted to go and play with the kids. So, but I didn't realize how dangerous it was to say such things in a socialist society, because I was pulled out by the teacher by my ear. She grabbed my ear, pulled me out of the bench, and marched me to principal office. So I was like thinking, well, I guess maybe I just didn't say it politely, but it was not how I said it. It was what I said. After she explained to principal what I said, they called police. So the police on the way to school, apparently, they stopped by my mother's school. My mom was a teacher in different school across the town. So they can detain her. They brought her to my school. And then there was a two secret police officers and two officers in uniform. So they brought my mom to my principal, to my school, and they started yelling at us. Eventually, they threatened my mom that if she does not instill more love for socialism in in her kids, like me and my two siblings, we will be taken away, and the government will give us the proper education that she is not able to do so. And there was nothing unusual. I mean, that's if the Communist Party, I'm saying Communist Party ruled the socialist state, if they perceive that you are not being attentive to socialist Marxist values, you could be destroyed. You were canceled, basically. If you were artist, you were not able to perform anymore. If you were actor, your road were closed. You could not perform. If you were artist, you could not paint, or your paintings were either destroyed or removed from museums or art galleries, and you were not allowed to post anything in those places. If you were authors, you fell fall with Communist Party members and socialist ideals, your books were pulled out, and you were not allowed to publish books anymore. Even if you wanted, if you had the means, those books were banned. There were people publishing on the West, but then they had to smuggle the books back into Poland, and for that you could be in prison. I know a little bit about it because it happened that my father was high level communist official in Polish government, and he was actually responsible for censorship. So what I see today on YouTube being censored is not different than what my father did to people in Poland when he censored people inconvenient to socialist ideology, to socialist state.
Interesting point. And I did want to discuss your father, and let's do that here in a little bit, but staying back in that time frame when you were a child in Poland, and I'm mentioning this again for the benefit of listeners and folks that maybe just don't know it for whatever reason. You gave an excellent example. The government or representatives of the government were telling you what to think, how to think. They were threatening you, like you just said, not just you, but everyone. And I don't think people realize the depth of how your life was controlled. Housing, for example, I think, and please correct me if I misstate anything here, but wasn't housing decided by the government? Okay, you can live in this house, and this family is also going to live in this house with you. In every aspect of your life, you're standing in food lines to get a loaf of bread on a daily basis. Um, you don't have air conditioning, perhaps. You don't have phones. You're not able to utilize phones. Um, Vehicle ownership and utilization is limited. Every aspect, again, correct me if I'm wrong, every aspect of your life is controlled in that type of society, correct?
You are not wrong. You are absolutely correct. And please remember, it didn't happen just overnight. Well, actually, in Poland, it happened very quickly because it was that whole system was brought on bayonets of Soviet army. I'm saying Soviet army, not Russian army, because Russia is not communist country. It's not even socialist country today. And but at that time, there was that oppressive state that imposed its will on other countries in Eastern Europe. So yes, but you are absolutely correct. The government decided where you can live if you can change place of your residency. If you did not, you could not just move from city to city. There are certain mechanisms in place that, for example, in my family, when my mom wanted to move closer to her family from the Western Poland to Central Poland, she just could not move because to move into that city, you would have to have a job. But to have a job, you have to live in that city. So the only way to do it was with exchanging the apartments from one city to another with somebody else who was already living there. And also that could be stopped by the government. You're talking about the food shortages and lines for food. Yes, that was very common because the socialist economy is very inefficient. But this is why, there's another reason why communists and socialists need to control society very closely. Because after maybe a year or 2 years of poverty, people have enough. The problem is that once you vote socialist in, you can't vote him out most of the time. You just have to eliminate him. And this is the biggest danger, it was big dangers in Poland, that people are getting so fed up with the poverty, with the dangers, with the oppression, with the censorship, that they were ready to hang socialists and communists from the Latin posts. There was so much hate towards these people, but people couldn't do anything because the rules and regulations, the laws implemented by socialists, basically criminalizing any opposition. If you did not agree with a socialist state on something, you could be in prison because there were laws in place that allow leading party, Communist Party in Poland, to lock people up for oppositions. And this is also how I end up and eventually in prison for opposing a socialist state, for printing newspapers outside of the government censorship without government permission. So I was sentenced to 3 years of prison time and loss of my civil rights for I think for 3 years, and restricted civil rights for another years. So that was quite common. Please remember, everything that socialists do, whether it is censorship, whether it is imprisonment or even assassination, is always explained to society, this is for the society's good. We censor these people because they could be dangerous for you if you subscribe to these ideas, or maybe you stop believing what the socialist government is trying to say. So we need to censor these people. We need to imprison certain segment of society because they don't agree with the socialist narratives. And here, I'll give you a good example of it, because my father, if you met him, you would think this is the greatest person in the world. He is extremely well educated, very outspoken, until he started probing his political views. And I remember I spent time, I think almost a year and a half with my father when my mom could not afford feeding 3 kids. So it was decided that I, as the oldest one, who can hold its own, will go to live with father at the time. So my father's idea was that socialism is such a great achievement of humanity that people who disagree with it are dangerous and they need to be silenced. They need to be cancelled because they prevent most of the greater part of society. They prevent them from living in this great socialist utopia. So I'm asking, well, if it seems like in Poland, most of the people don't like it. What do you do? Well, they will like it. We make them do. We just remove from society the most outspoken people against socialism. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna just, if this is artist or author, we're gonna cancel their art. We're gonna basically cancel them out of society. When people don't hear about them, then they will follow the socialist ideals and ideology. But if that doesn't work, we still have prisons. So now we can actually put these people, isolate them physically from society, and with the narrative that people will be ready to accept. And if that doesn't work, we just physically eliminate these people. And everything is done under the guise of protection of society or helping fellow citizens and making the society better. So whether you assassinate people, imprison them for political views, or censor them or cancel them, is all done in the name of the building better society. Those are the hallmarks of society. Please remember that my family survived quite few socialisms. They survived Adolf Hitler's socialism, the National Socialism. They survived Joseph Stalin's socialism. They survived Leonid Brezhnev's socialism. I am Leonid Brezhnev's socialism survivor. And it goes on and on. And what people do not realize, in a socialist state, every so often, people have had so enough of that oppression and depravity that they revolt. And whether it is in Poland in 1968, 1970, 1976, eventually culminating in 1980, when for a brief period of time, people were able to gain freedom through registering the first independent from Communist Party trade union movement, so-called called Solidarity. And that was the first in the entire Eastern Bloc country movement, trade union that became social movement eventually, was the first in Eastern Bloc countries that was totally independent from Communist Party. And this is something that was very dangerous for socialist and communist system. So the lists for arrests of prominent and maybe not so prominent, but people who were involved in freedom movement in Poland, the secret police were making a list of people to be arrested.
And you said a word earlier that I think oftentimes people just kind of glance over it. You used the word eliminated, and when we're talking about socialist rulers, they're not. When you say eliminate, they're not just, like you said, counseling them or maybe putting them in prison. If they disagree enough, they murder them, correct?
They will be physically eliminated. They will be eliminated
Yeah.
either by cancellations, by censorship, by prison. But if that doesn't work, they will be physically murdered, like you said. And even today, till today, people are still looking for some of the victims, for the graves of people who became victims of socialist regime. And again, at that time, there was not widely known. People were afraid to talk about it. But now the scale of the political murders in communist states, not only in Poland, any socialist state, is appalling. Poles are still looking for their heroes from Second World War, who were deemed dangerous because they experienced Western freedom. So for socialism, people like this were dangerous, and many of them were arrested and executed and thrown in unmarked graves, and many of them are not accounted till today. And again, people are still looking for their graves. I think a year and a half ago was found another grave, mass grave, of political opponents of socialist regime from late 1940s and 1950s. So this is nothing unusual, and it doesn't happen. It wouldn't happen overnight, but eventually, to keep the control they gain once, they have to resort to these methods, and those are very. That's why these states are very dangerous, but are excellent systems to control society, especially for morally deprived people who have no moral values. They will use socialism for control and power.
You
And this is
mentioned,
why, you know, me speaking about these things, I'm getting comments that that looks like last 4 years here in the United States. No, it's not. We are not socialist state, but just the similarities of socialist Marxist oppression from former communist countries are resonate with people in America. That's why I'm being censored by YouTube and Facebook, and I think that our conversation is also going to be censored or at least limit, and the reach is going to be limited.
sure, sure. You referenced the transition of Poland from the socialist ideologies and the resistance of citizens. Now, as a young man yourself in Poland, and again, you talked about being imprisoned for printing a newspaper. I'm assuming or guessing that you were part of that resistance to that, and you were expressing your opinions, and you were sharing that by utilization of the newspapers. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. There was the times that having unregistered typewriter could put you in prison, or at least put you in trouble with the socialist, with the communist government running the socialist state. So yes, that's truth. You see what happened in Poland at the time in 1978 when John Paul II came to Poland. I think that was the first time that people actually could see how powerful the nation can be, and that, because you know, until that time, only the fake news media in a communist country, in communist Poland at the time, they were promoting socialism and showing that TV was only showing the masses attending the Communist Party meetings, and enjoy, like how they enjoy the socialism, communism. We didn't have anything to eat, but the press and the fake news media were telling us that we are living in the paradise, that we cannot buy food because there are few people who make too much money. Actually, their narrative is that we live in Poland, we're living too well because we have too much money to buy all the food out, and that is why nothing is left for other people. So there we didn't have a food because we had too much money and we were too rich. So that was the narrative, and that was so when John Paul II came in. People always, until that time, most of the people, including my family and me, we believe that there's only very few of people like me opposing socialism, Marxism, that everybody in Poland is for the socialism. That basically the fake news media were force multiplier for communism, and the brainwashing people thinking that they are just isolated few who oppose and everybody is for socialism. So when John Paul II came in 1978, when people came on the streets to greet him, to see him, for the first time they see that there's not hundreds of them, not thousands of them, not hundreds of thousands of them, that there's millions of them. And at that time, the fake news media were showing maybe 2 or 3 people around the Pope. So Pope was making speeches and very few people around, and most of the people protesting this man with funny hat and a long white dress. So that was the narrative. But when people came on the streets to greet the Pope, they seen that that narrative by fake news media is false. That there are millions of them, and today you can actually on YouTube or on the other medias look into archives. You can see there's entire city blogs being filled with millions of people wanting to listen to what John Paul II has to say. And his main theme was, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
So when J.D. Vance our vice president came and spoke in France. And when he said these words, don't be afraid of your own voters, don't be afraid, he didn't speak to these baboons sitting in that room, these globalists and the neo-Nazis sitting in that room. He was speaking to people of Western Europe. Don't be afraid. Don't let these baboons to suppress you. Don't allow them to interfere with the elections, to falsify the elections like they tried to do in Romania. So he was speaking to baboons in that room. He was not speaking, I'm sorry, you can cut it out later, but he was not speaking to the baboons in that room from the European Union. He was speaking to citizens of European Union. Don't be afraid. The same thing when John Paul II was telling people in 1978. And this is why the Solidarity, the trade union, was born, the trade union that turned into the social movement in Poland and eventually challenged the communist and socialist, communists and the socialist ideals. So that was very dangerous. And communists already knew they are losing grip on society. So the martial law was planned from the very beginning when Solidarity was born. And eventually, they on December 13, 1991, they start arresting people at midnight throughout entire Poland from the lists that they were preparing much earlier. So, and even that, the explanation was, well, we are not arresting these people, we are detaining them only for their own benefits and for benefit of Poland, because the Poland needs these people to be detained. This is for your good. This is for good of these people who are detained. And they are not political prisoners, absolutely not. They are not even prisoners. They are just detainees. They are internees. The word was being called, they are internees being kept in internment locations. So there were free people by the narrative of communist regime in socialist Poland at the time. And this is another thing, it is very, very, I would say, this is the aspect, one of the aspects of socialist regimes, because for them to rule and hang on to power, they need the perversion, the depravity of society. They need divide society. And also the best way to divide society is by the process, which is not very well understood here in America, is normalization and desensitization first, and then normalization of evil. So if people don't have moral values, if they are subscribed to so-called relative morality of socialist regime, it's much easier to control them, because then you can actually make them accept certain depravities, the imprisonments, the assassinations, the cancellations of prominent citizens. You can make people accept this type of depravity of socialist regime. So there's this very big stress is on attack, like I said earlier, our moral values, our family values. And to do that, first it is the process is desensitization. So they are bringing up these things that normally you would think is depravity, but in more positive way. And then it is being even implemented the new words, new vocabulary, that kind of, I'll tell you, the good example is word wokeism. What is wokeism? You know, let me tell you, maybe this good example will be if your child or somebody in your family came to you and say, look, I think the teacher is a pervert and is teaching the perversion to your children, your ears would perk up. You definitely would want to know what's going on in that school. And you would say, well, you would definitely investigate what's going on, what the perversion is being thrown on our kids. But if somebody comes to you and say, well, the teacher is just a little bit woke, not a little bit pervert, just a little bit woke, well, the school is a little bit woke, it's just wokeism, seems like benign word, which people didn't know earlier, suddenly is replacing words that mean something like perversion, depravity, debauchery. And this is how they implement, slowly desensitize depravity and debauchery. But then they normalize it too by instilling the laws that no, I don't know what you think, what our moral values is, but you will be doing this. You are not allowed to call somebody by what he is. You have to use the special words that we invent for you. So then there's not being normalized and eventually legalized the depravity and debauchery. By this time, basically, the government can put you in prison for almost anything, even if you say something that in the past was really nothing. It was a meaningful word. Now, if you use it, you become an enemy of the state almost. So I'm talking about the Poland and other socialist states of that era. This is how it happened. This is how they normalized the depravity and perversion. Another thing too is, how do you think a socialist party of Adolf Hitler was able to convince people that euthanizing of handicapped children is okay, euthanizing of mentally ill people is okay, because it is for the benefit of society, make countries stronger? This had was explained to them. But before it was possible in a socialist Germany of Adolf Hitler, the first that they need to make sure that people subscribe to so-called relative morality. It's basically where when your beliefs and moral values are no longer embedded on some solid grounds. There's no longer, but now you start subscribing to politicians' views, and as they slowly change or shift to certain goals, your moral values, they expect to shift too. If they don't, you become become very dangerous. And it is in socialist states, it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong.
I see your point. I definitely see your point. We've mentioned your dad a couple times, and I'm curious. I think most children, when they're young, they look up to their parents, they look up to their mom, they look up to their dad. My question is this: when you were young, did your father always have this ideology or believe this, or was this something instilled in through the indoctrination process? Did he eventually absorb that and then support it? Or was he, that way from the beginning, from as far back as you can remember?
No, he was not. And this is another process. It's a bit different because please remember at that time, Poland and other countries in Eastern Bloc were emerging from Second World War, from violence on immense scale. And these people were a very easy target for socialism and communism, and especially that ready infrastructure was brought on the Soviet bayonets. And so they were targeting young people like my father, promising them awesome careers and educating them the way they wanted to educate them. So basically, my father was product of socialist indoctrination, and you can't change this once this process takes roots in a person. It is very difficult to change. My father died in 2021, still convinced that socialism and communism are the greatest achievements of humanity, and he was still angry and people who derail the socialism and implemented back freedom in Poland. So he still could not come to terms with it. And I remember before he died, I had the chance with my wife to go and visit him in Warsaw, and his views did not change. And if he could, I'm sure he would start over and start eliminating the freedom in Poland, because not because he was, well, those acts are evil, but he didn't see himself as an evil person. He seen himself as somebody who's going to do great things for society. But sometimes society, according to him, needs to be beaten into the ideals and ideology.
Let's jump to your imprisonment. Let's talk about that. You referenced the printing of the newspaper, but what I'm interested in is once you were targeted by the government, how did that process unfold? How did they take you into custody? Did they storm your house and grab you up and take you? How did that work? And then did you go immediately to a prison?
Yes, most of the people their homes were stormed in the middle of the night on December 13th, after midnight, and they were just dragged out of the house, sometimes leaving young children at home on their own. And that happened in one night across entire Poland. I was not targeted at the time. They target the people who were prominent, people who meant something to society. I was just a little young kid. But eventually, when I seen what happened, and I already had some experience with I would say freedom, I listened to Radio Free Europe, I listened to Voice of America, I listened to BBC at the time. You could go to prison for doing this, or if you were young enough, that you could be taken away from family, placed in orphanage for that, or your parents could be arrested. So because of my family structure, my father left when I was 7 years old. So I was not under influence of my father, and my grandmothers, my mom, and my mom's family was they were their moral values were based on faith, on Christian faith. I'm not saying that is the only way people survive communism, but my family survived communism because of Christian faith, and so I was already, I would say, educated enough to know that the danger of socialism and communism, and especially after the martial law, when they start mass arrests in Poland overnight, according to earlier prepared lists, I knew that this is very wrong, and we wanted to do something. So we got together with friends and decided to print a newspaper telling people what is really happening in the country, who is arrested. Especially there was huge need for families to know where government, the socialist government, kidnapped and kept their family members. So we try to look up and see that information and print that this and this person was arrested on December 13 at such and such time, such and such at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he is currently being kept in such prison. So we were printing that, and that was very dangerous. Anything, if they cannot, people who have independent minds are very dangerous to socialist state, and especially us going around the censorship and printing our own newspaper, it was extremely dangerous. So yes, that's they look us up because we didn't know how to do it. I was never involved in conspiracy. I was never involved in underground structures. We built one, but we didn't know how to do it. So it was very easy for secret police to find us, and I was arrested. We were coming to print another edition of our newspaper on the Point. So I went up there for the meeting, and that's where I got arrested. I was the secret police with the guns drawn. They ran. They throw me on the ground and throw me inside the apartment there. And then I spent a few hours laying on the floor, handcuffed, because they were waiting for other people to show up. And like, yeah, that's how it eventually.
For printing a newspaper, that's what happened
Yes,
to you.
yes,
Yep.
yes. But to many people, the most of the
Sure.
time, people arrest after the first wave of mass arrest by socialist regime, by socialist state. The second wave was mostly people expressing their disappointment in that they're expressing their opposition to socialist state and printing newspapers like I did, or taking other actions, or even people trying to help the families of those arrested. They were arrested themselves. So I remember that was so strict that after the martial law was announced on December 13, every sign of solidarity trade union was banned. You could not wear the lapel. You could go to prison, or you could get beat up by the police or military for having it. So I remember at the time in my city, we changed and we were not wearing anymore the solidarity trade. We did when there was no police around, but we were American flag as a symbol of freedom. So yeah, you can maybe take us to prison, you can arrest us, but we will still express our yearn, our desire for freedom by wearing American flag. So we were wearing American. A lot of people were wearing American flag. And I remember during the checkpoint, I described it in my book, the Pledge to America. In that book, I described the incident when we were traveling, and there were checkpoints throughout the city. So we're traveling, was moving in the city bus. Those buses were stopped often, and people were removed from the buses, searched, and documents were being checked. So they seen those American flags, and I think there's one of the few times that they lost their minds, and they start ripping them out, and they throw American flag on the ground and start stomping on it. That was the secret police with the police on the checkpoint. So they start stomping on American flag. They kick us back into the bus and say, "Now you can leave." As we were leaving, somebody opened this little tiny window in the bus and say, we're gonna buy some more American flags. We will wear them again. And they stopped the bus. They told us to leave the bus again. And they picked the guy. I don't think it was the same guy. I don't think they even care who they pick up. There was more about demonstrating their power. So they dragged the guy and beating him with those robbers' clubs they used to they used to have with them. So they drag him into the police car, and I never heard from the guy. We never heard from the guy. We didn't know what happened to the guy. Most likely he spent some time in prison if they didn't kill him outright, beating him to death. But there was nothing unusual at the time. So I remember that incident, I described it. And again, they didn't care who they did. It was mostly to terrorize the society. And they just grabbed the guy, whoever was most convenient to grab, not necessarily the guy who told that we're going to buy more American flags and we will be wearing them as a symbol of freedom. So, yeah.
They just wanted to show force
Yes.
and
And you cannot oppose the socialist state.
extinguish that behavior. That makes
Yes.
sense. Well, let me ask this. I'm not familiar with how the justice system works or worked in Poland. So,
Injustice system, yes.
yeah,
The
yeah,
socialist system, I would say,
yeah.
yes.
Well, along that line there, so they grab you up for printing a paper, they put you in jail or prison. This might be a silly question to you, but I honestly don't know. Are you given an opportunity to go to court over this? Are you charged with specific crimes, or at that time, are they just grabbing people that oppose the government and throwing them indefinitely into prison? How did it work?
So there were two types of prisoners in Poland at the time. The first one was those kidnapped from homes across entire Poland at the beginning of martial law. These people had no opportunity, they had no chance to see any court. It was decided that they will be isolated in the internment camps because they could be, that's exactly the words of the Communist Party at the time, because they were potentially dangerous to the state and police society. So they were not arrested, they were not put in prisons, they were only interned in internment camps. So that was one. They have no recourse, they had nothing they could say, there was no lawyers, nothing. In our cases, it was a little bit different. There was at least they tried to pretend that there is some kind of court. In my case, there was military court. So me and people from my group, they were, and most of the people in martial, the justice system, the courts were suspended actually. So the military courts were deciding. So there was three judges, and I had absolutely no rights. I had no idea even how to deal with the situation. I was a young kid at the time. I was 21, barely 21 years old, and sitting in prison and facing these socialist goons. So I was told that, okay, in your case, we already have all the proof that we need. They didn't have any. You're gonna be going to in front of the judge, in front of the court martial, the military court, and you will hear your sentence. So yeah, eventually my mom was able to find an attorney who was able to meet with me for an hour and just explain to me that he will try to do anything he can, the best he can, but really there is nothing he can be done. The socialist government controls everything. So yeah, and I was
They just put on they presented
yeah,
kind of going through the motions
yeah,
of pretending
yeah,
there's a justice system.
yes. I was beat up and then put in the car, drove in front of the military court, in front of those three judges, and sentenced to 3 years in prison time. Well, the interesting story is you never know how the things will turn, because those activist judges in the military, they were working for the Communist Party. Well, they are being prosecuted today. When Poland today is free, Poland is no longer socialist state, is no longer run by communists. So today, these judges are being prosecuted, and these activist judges. And with my wife in last year in 2024 in May, we actually traveled to Poland to testify in the case of the judge who sentenced me to prison time. He is being prosecuted for communist crimes, for crimes against humanity, crimes against Polish nation, basically judicial terror. And this is something that also for me was educational, because I learned that all the beatings that we were getting, all the beatings that I was getting from the regime, they were torture. I never thought about it. It was given that you will be beat up and abused. That it was so normal that I never thought about it as a torture. I thought that just like, well, that's the way the system operates. Well, I was made aware during that court case against this judge that was tortured. I was tortured. I would
So
never
the
think.
judge that sentenced you to 3 years as
To
a 21-year-old young
yes,
man, that
he's being
judge
prosecuted
was
for
held
judicial
accountable.
activism. Yeah, basically judicial activism.
Wow.
You know,
How do you find out about it?
it's
Like
not only
how are
me. It's not only me. This judge prosecuted and put to prison, I think, hundreds of Poles, if not thousands. I was one of
wow.
them.
How were you located in America? How did they know we need to find Drago? He was a victim here. Did you just through word of mouth hear that this was going on in Poland, or were you
No,
officially contacted?
my sister who lives in Poland, she was contacted by the Polish court system that there is a case against the judge who sentenced me to prison time, and this activist judge is being prosecuted himself now for that judicial activism, for sentencing people to prison, basically for communist crimes and crimes against Polish nation. So the full prosecution list also includes communist against the crimes against humanity. So she contacted me and said if I could come and testify. And so me and my wife arrived in Warsaw, and I did testify against this judge.
How
Though,
did
you
you
know, it's
feel
like
about
it is
that?
40 years after the fact. But the, the, the Poles are not taking it easy. The history is very important in Poland. So, and such depravity and perversion under communist times cannot get unpunished. So Poles now, when they are free, they look up behind and try to go bring those people who were torturing, killing, murdering other people, sentencing them to prison. They try to now bring them to justice. At that time, this is called the judicial murder, when those judges were sentencing, activist judges were sentencing people to death on drum-up charges or just for the political reasons, because it was convenient for communist political party. They are bringing them to justice now.
When you first heard about that and your sister told you, did you immediately think, yes, absolutely, I'm going to testify? Or were you hesitant to get involved?
Well, I was, I didn't really, that was not important for me at the time. I'm American. I have my life here. I have my family here. This is my past. But also, I had to remember our people who are still suffering from the depravity of socialist ideology, socialist regime. So it was kind of my moral obligation to people who I spent the time in prison with. It was my moral obligation as well to people who were my heroes at the time, fighting for freedom of Poland, to do that. And so after talking with my wife, we decided to go to Warsaw. Please remember also, I was contacted earlier by my mom, who was still alive at the time, that Poland now pays reparations to people who were tortured or who were imprisoned by communists or for political reasons. I refuse that because, again, I say I'm American and I don't need money from another government. I'm well off, and I'm proud American. So I told my mom that I really don't want that money, and my mom accepted it, and her response was that I refused that at the time.
Wow, that's fascinating. Let's kind of go back to your time in prison, those 3 years. Are there any stories or any items that you can share that stand out most to you?
It's quite a lot.
I would imagine. Are there one or two that you could share about perhaps interactions with other
I can share.
prisoners
Yeah, I have no problem
or
sharing it.
okay, or
Although
tortures?
I have no problem sharing it. Although for some of the stories, I get beat up on social media, również in Poland, because please remember, Poland today is different. Today, the violence has no place in Poland. Violence today is not tolerated in Poland, although there was not such when I was growing up. So I
Sure.
remember when I was arrested, the first thing that happened to me when they throw me in prison cell. It was like, I think, 3 o'clock in the morning. So when they turned the lights on, one of the bigger criminals walked up to me and said, he's going to eat my breakfast. So I said, no, not really, you're not. And I knock him out. Then carefully, I lift his upper lip. I knock his two front teeth out and pull them out. And I was like holding them. I was thinking like, well, it'll be nice necklace one day. So I'm going to hide them and put them back again. So the guy woke up without front teeth. And then he started threatening me. They say, you go to real prison because this is just the secret police headquarters, but you go to real prison. I just pass the word, they're gonna kill you there. I said, you keep talking like this, you're gonna lose the bottom teeth as well. So you better sit quietly. There was nothing unusual at the time, but at that time, but today in Poland, this is very frowned upon. The violence, regardless of what it is not tolerated, and especially by the younger generations, younger Poles who never experienced violence towards themselves. They are very upset about it. But it is what it is. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Also in Poland, I remember I would like to go back from before the prison time too,
Sure.
because we were so poor that, and this is nothing unusual. A lot of people that in my situation at the time live the same life, the similar lifestyles. So like I didn't have a food sometimes if my mom did not wake up early on time to buy bread. So I was going to school hungry. That's not a big deal because that's the way we lived in Poland. It was normal. It was nothing unusual. But when I see these kids with them having nice buns of pieces of bread, slices of bread with ham, with mayonnaise, with lettuce, tomatoes, like everything, like you would see today that sandwich, you would think, damn, this I would like to eat one. So one day I just woke up to one of those. Mostly they were party members, children of the party members, because they had also access to special stores, special buying special food that was not available to others. So I just woke up to one of them. I tore his sandwich in half, give him another half, ate another one, but it was tasty. I remember so good. I told him, tomorrow you bring two sandwiches. I will eat one, you will eat one. But if you don't, you won't eat anything. You will eat nothing. I will eat your sandwich. And he brought me sandwich. So from then on, yes, I was extorting sandwiches from the rich kids. And I also at that time I noticed that other kids were just like me, eating somewhere in the corner so others don't see what they eat. Because in Poland, nobody wanted to be seen as a poor, especially among kids. So
Right.
like my sandwich was usually sometimes was just a little bit of tea and sprinkled with sugar. If we had a lot, it was like a good day, we had a sour cream sprinkled with sugar or butter sprinkled with sugar. If sugar was available, sometimes it was just the margarine. And so I don't want people to see the sandwich that I eat. So, but then after I start eating well, thanks to this Communist Party member son, I notice other kids doing the same thing. And I remember like big time that the awareness, where I became aware of the poverty was one time I missed the bus home because I had to commute to school across the city. It was second grade elementary school. So just getting on the bus, you have to just push yourself in, and the doors weren't even closed. The people were just hanging out outside, holding on to their
Wow.
lives, trying to get from one bus stop to another. So I missed the bus, and I was working with the kid who was smaller, and I remember I was bullying this kid, like everybody was bullying this kid in the class, and including myself. So as we walk, he was, I think, already afraid that I would do something to him. But I said, like, where do you live? He said, I live behind the corner up there. So I said, well, let me see how you live. So we walk into this old building. There was no bathrooms there. You had to go outside to use the bathroom. And there was no showers or nothing. You took the bath in the sink or in the big pan. And so I went up there and I see this. There was the table, a chair, and the bed, one of each, and the sink, the deep sink like today you have in the locker rooms for the janitors in the janitor room.
Okay.
So when I walk in, I said, "Whoa! So where do you eat?" I say, "I eat at the table." So where is your chair? I say, "No, I sleep on my mom's lap." Okay, where do you sleep? I sleep with my mom. We cannot afford another bed. So where is your food? I say, well, we don't have any until mom brings it. When she brings it, it's enough. She has enough money to buy just for a day, so we eat it all. What if she doesn't? What if she doesn't buy the bread? I already knew the answer because I was the same
Right.
way. I
Right.
said, well, then I don't eat. So the next day, actually, I found another party member's son, and this one had a little bit problem. I kind of like had to explain him offhand very quickly that he needs to bring another sandwich for this kid. And so from then on, this kid had a breakfast, decent breakfast every day, like a second breakfast at school. And there was another kid too, but he complained to his parents. And I remember this party apparatchik with his wife came in to protect their son and stuff. And I already got the wind that this is going to happen. So I dragged the
Sure.
kid in the bathroom and beat him up and told him if he say a word, he will know, I will beat him up more. I don't think I had a stellar reputation at school. So they kind of like, okay. And they went to our class and he was stopped by me and say, no, not him, not him. So he did not recognize anybody who was trying to extort his sandwiches. Their parents were so they wanted to find who was extorting sandwiches from their son. So they went through entire school, every class, all their class, and they didn't find it. This kid never said who was stealing his sandwiches. But yeah, that's how it worked.
Yeah,
So that is how poor we were. So in prison time, when I was in prison, yeah, I didn't let anybody take my breakfast. Actually, he couldn't eat for for a couple of days before they took him out. So I had his breakfast actually because he couldn't eat.
right.
Uh, and,
Yeah.
uh, and
And
yeah, so
I'm sure there were countless, like you said, countless stories of
oh
that
yes.
experience. But let me ask you this. At what point do you decide I I think I want to leave. I think I want to maybe go to the United States. When does that register or when do those thoughts begin?
The thoughts about America began very early because my grandmother was always saying, "Look, we live in the poverty, but look at this country. Look at America. You know, people are free up there. They have abundance of everything. You know, this is so. The America was always set as an example in my home, as an example of a country of free, independent people. So you know, like I didn't think much about it. I just knew of it. But before my prison time, like my mom couldn't afford to feed three kids. I was sent to my father, the communist. It happened that on the way from school, I had to change buses, and the bus stop was in front of the U.S. Embassy. So there, and I remember I love to stop up there. This is where I started looking to a little bit more. And they have these glass displays when they describe like life of average American or accomplishments of America in the world. And I was just eating it. I was just like sometimes I missed two, three buses because I was just like daydreaming. And
Right.
I remember looking through the fence and see these powerful, big, beautiful cars. And I was like, holy smoke, that would be so awesome. One day, you know, it's like a dream. I never thought it would be possible for me to come to America. But, you know, you can dream. So this is, that's just, I remember. But eventually I was kicked back by my father back to live with my mother because I didn't get along with their son up there. So, and also some other problems as well. I
Sure.
was not very polite kid. And so they sent me back. So after present time, I was already doing boxing, kickboxing. I started when I was kid. I'm going back and forth the chronology with the chronology, but there's so
Oh,
many
that's
things that
fine.
you know I
Yeah.
missed. So when I started growing up, I started learning a box first, a boxing. So the instructor there, his name is Tadeusz Duda. He's still alive actually. I just found out somebody sent me a message that he is still there. So under his tutelage I was learning boxing. He was there was a police club at the time. I was maybe what 12 years old, and for me that I didn't understand police, not police club, it was sports club,
Mhm.
Gwardia Zielona Góra. So this is where I started learning boxing. So after prison time, before the prison, so after boxing, I switched to karate Kyokushinkai. Eventually, I came to Lodz, to different city, and then I started practicing Taekwondo. So after a prison time, I tried to resume my normal life. I was released on amnesty for political prisoners before the second visit of John Paul II. So when I was released from prison with other political prisoners, trying to resume normal life, of course, I started attending the kickboxing, taekwondo club. But very often after coming, our we practice usually in the evening. So leaving the club, sometimes I was stopped by the police, the secret police. So basically, car with civilian registrations pulled in. The bunch of dudes jumped out with the badges and said, "Okay, secret police, you go with us." They handcuffed me, throw me in the car, and they drove me around the town, outside the town, in the woods, in the different fields. And for a few hours, they just dropped me off, usually outside of town. So I had to go make my way back home. Um, that was not done to scare me. I'm sure that, but mostly their goal was to scare people around me. Hey, if you do that, it's going to happen. The same thing happened to you. And the same thing, I was told the same thing, like you continue with your views. If your views don't change, you will end up like a priest Popiełuszko. There's a Father Popiełuszko who was at that time being dragged through the court system, accused of all kinds of depravities, weapon charges, and whatever they could come up with it. So I was told I will end up like him. The Father Popiełuszko, correctly pronouncing it, he was murdered eventually. After I left Poland, he was murdered by secret police. These people eventually, when the communists fell, they went to prison. His murderers and torturers went to prison. But that was after the communist system, the socialist system and communist party fell.
Sure.
So this is when the idea came, talking to other members of Solidarity Trade Union, that, you know what, I think it's time to leave because eventually you end up dead. And this is where I didn't think twice where to go. I just didn't believe that I would have ever be permitted by America to come to America. But I went to U.S. Embassy. I asked for help. And I explained them what happened. So they asked for the documents and stuff. I brought the documents. And within because I couldn't even ask for a passport to leave Poland unless I had a promissory note from U.S. Embassy that I can permanently settle in the United States. So that was given to me fairly quickly after I present my documents, explained what happened to me. It was nothing uncommon. There was a lot of people like me at the time trying to escape Poland. And so, yeah, I was given passport from a communist government with the one-way ticket. Basically, I still have this passport. I'm going to post it online on my website. It says valid only to cross. I can cross Polish border only one time.
Really? It's a one-trip
Yeah, there's one
passport.
trip, one-way trip. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Did you
yeah,
at that
I
time
didn't know.
did no,
Uh-huh.
go ahead.
So at that time, I didn't speak English. I didn't know nothing about America except what I read in the books and what I admire and what I learned on the glass displays on U.S. Embassy. So I was very excited, but I was also a little bit scared. I was coming like
Oh yeah.
I don't know the language. I don't know what will happen, and also I knew that I may never see my family again. So
Right. That's heavy stuff. Did anybody
yeah,
within
yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
circle, any of your friends or any of your family members, did they decide the same? Or was this just simply you
That
going
was
on
me.
this?
See, my mom, yeah, my mom is, she understood it. For her, it was a tragedy, but, because she knew that I will never come back, but she supported me. So,
That's
but
good.
then, like when I settled down in America and I started writing her letter, she was very proud of me before she passed
I
away.
would imagine. So you initiate the process at the embassy and you get your passport. Tell us about actually your last day, like leaving. Was it the first time you had ever flown on an airplane when you came to America? What were you feeling? Just kind of talk about that process a little bit.
Was, saying goodbye to my family and to Poland forever because I didn't think I would ever be allowed to come back. So I remember walking up the tarmac of the in the Warsaw on the international airport, and yep, that was like I was thinking, that's it. I have my bag of my clothes. That's basically it. And that boarded the airplane, flew to America.
There you go.
And
All right. So you come to America
yes, there were
and
people already waiting for me. So, well, maybe different. From Warsaw, I flew to Germany. This is where there
okay.
was a center for political prisoners run by U.S. State Department, I believe. And this is where they decide where you go. So they don't just send you to America, drop you on the street and say, "Oh, fend for yourself."
Right.
They wanted us to succeed in America. So there were, in my case, there was church who agreed to accept me and help me in my start in American life. So I remember I show up in that center when I landed in Germany. They were kind of teaching us a little bit about America, were telling us about life in America. And while we were waiting there for somebody to agree to sponsor us or to help us on the journey, we're using this time to learn about America. And eventually I was called to office and say, "Hey, do you have any preferences where you would like to stay in America? Where would you like to settle down?" I was like thinking, damn, I was so cold forever. So anywhere where it's hot, the warmer, the hotter, the better. And so I said, "How about Memphis, Tennessee?" I was like, "Well, sounds great. Is it hot up there?" "Oh, it's very hot." "Sign me up." I go to Memphis. And this is how I
Wow.
eventually end up with a bag of clothes in Memphis, Tennessee.
So you go from Poland to Germany to Memphis, Tennessee.
Yes.
You and your bag, and that's essentially it. And you meet
Yes.
you
Yes.
meet individuals
And
in Memphis that are gonna.
I am successful. I consider myself successful. I'm living my American dream. But that would never happen if not American people. You know, like when I landed there, I didn't speak English. I didn't have any money. I had like 10 pfennigs of German coin. That's all I had. And
Wow.
yep, that's people were waiting for me there, so they helped me out. They
Do
found
you
the
go to do you live with a family? Do they provide
for
you with
initially
an
yes, I was
apartment or
yes, there was older family that they took me under their roof until they found some apartment for me. And so I stayed for maybe a week or 2 weeks, if I remember, until they found a job for me, or help me find the job and help me find the apartment. So the apartment at the time, it was on the Court Avenue in Memphis. I still remember there are condemned buildings now, but at that time when I walked in, I was looking like I was looking inside. So they had a one bedroom. I was like, holy smoke, this whole for me, you know. Then they have air conditioning, something I didn't know what it was in Poland. So I remember, and they had a phone. Good God! I mean, I'm living like a king now. You know, there was a
right?
part of the project at the time. There was high crime area, but that was all I could afford. But I was so grateful, you know, like I couldn't wait for my American friends to leave so I can call my mom and say, "Mom, check this out. I'm living in an apartment. I have my own bedroom. I have my air conditioning and telephone I'm calling you from." So I remember my mom cried. I say, she was so excited, but she was concerned, like, "Can you afford it?" I say, "Yeah, I can afford it." You know, not really much because I think my pay was like $150, maybe I think 100. I don't remember. I think like $180 a week. I was working as a janitor, so I had to like set money aside to pay for electricity, for food, for the apartment. But again, I was not by myself. I was always supported by American people who didn't know me from Adam. Some of them just like, this is the guy who is trying to make a living. Let's help him. So almost every week I had the people who I didn't know. They were coming and saying, let me check your fridge. What do you have? Do you have this? Do you have that? They brought me clothes because the clothes that I brought with me was like 1970s, so it didn't fit, I wouldn't fit very well in society. So they
Right.
furnished they furnished my apartment, something I couldn't afford at the time. So I will never forget that. You know, this is something that resonates with me till today, and this is something that eventually I wrote that book about because I wanted to say thank you to America, and also wanted to give American people different vantage point because for you this is nothing unusual. Being good is so normal for American society to help each other that they just don't make a big deal about it. They don't talk about it, and seldom see it because it is transparent. This is how they were born. This is how they were brought up. But it is so normal. But what they don't know is that it is normal, but only in America. This is not normal anywhere else in the world. That goodness and that independence upon which American society was built. So yeah, that is why I wrote the book.
This episode of the Right to Remain Silent podcast is brought to you by Streetwise 360 Law Enforcement Consulting, your go-to resource for expert law enforcement training. Whether it's conducting successful criminal investigations, performing undercover work, mastering interviews, conducting surveillance, utilizing confidential informants, or case strategy, Streetwise 360 gives officers the real-world skills they need for success. Learn more at streetwise-360.com because knowledge is power in the field. Now
I
back to
wrote the
the
book.
show. That's outstanding. And we're gonna go over your book in great detail here in a bit. And I'm excited. I read that book. Very interesting. But we're definitely going to discuss that. Let me ask you this. While you're working and living in your apartment and integrating and essentially starting the American dream, how are you feeling? Like, are you thinking, man, this was the right decision? I did the right thing. Or were you hesitant or nervous as this was unfolding for you?
I was not hesitant, and I was like you say, I was like, wow, I'm here. I'm now my dream comes true. I was not worried about being well, by today's standards, by the standard I'm living the life today. I was poor, but I was free man to do whatever I wanted to do. I was a free man. I didn't have to look over my shoulder to secret police to show up and hold my ass to jail. So that was like very exhilarating. And also, I remember my first trip to, I think there was a Kroger, to the store. Good
Right.
God! I mean, I haven't seen my entire life that many products. And I remember the first grocery I was taken with my American friends, and so I kind of wandered into aisle with cereal. I say, holy smoke, I don't know what cereal is, but the boxes look so beautiful. It's got to be good. So I started loading it. I end up leaving that store with like full basket of different kinds of cereal. Well, I like it till today. I still like Rice Krispies and with milk, and I like the chocolate Krispies with milk. I
That's
love that.
fantastic. That is
But it was the
awesome.
first time in my life I ate it. Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
for me. It was that feeling. That was almost like the same feeling I had in Poland when I was given the documents from U.S. Embassy that I can settle in the United States. I remember at that time, like nothing else mattered. I mean, I was feel bad for my family that I have to leave them, but for me, I was almost untouchable at that time. I said, now the communists can suck my, can kiss my ass, I would say.
Right.
Fuck the communists, socialists, and all these ideological bastards up there.
Right.
And I remember, like somebody gave me wings. So when I was working from U.S. Embassy with this document, and the same thing, the same feeling, but more even stronger when I landed in America, when I started living my American dreams. And again, it would not be possible for me if not American citizens, American people who really did not know who I was. They was just so American to, well, we need to help this person and help me set my life here in America, for which I will always be grateful.
That's excellent. And you're progressing through as you're here, as you're learning English and you're working and you're generating income, you're also moving through the immigration system. You come here as a refugee. At some point, I assume you become a legal permanent resident where they give you the called the green card or whatever.
Yes.
And then at some point you become a naturalized United States citizen, right?
Yes, yes, in
That
1991. So it took me 6 years. I remember I was very nervous, but yes, you're right. When I landed, I had the status of political refugee, and then I got a green card. Then when I could apply, because there was a waiting period of 5 years, you can apply for American citizenship. I remember, I have to admit, I was very nervous. You know, I conducted many combat missions in Iraq on behalf of my America, my beloved America. And I don't remember being that nervous like I was before that
wow.
exam to become American citizen. And
That
especially with
just
my
tells you how
language.
important that was to you.
Oh, God, it was important. This is this is what I consider my biggest accomplishment of my life, is becoming American citizen. People always like to point out me being a Navy SEAL, the trident on my chest, and I'm very proud of it. It is great accomplishment, but it's not the greatest accomplishment of my life. The greatest accomplishment was becoming American citizen. So yes, that's I still remember that. My problem is that I learned English by myself. I didn't have a time to go to school to study, so I learned English reading cartoons, trying to watch TV and catch whatever I could from the conversations. And also my American friends helped me out. They brought me a dictionary. So that's how I started. And so the problem is that I learned English with a lot of issues, I had made a lot of errors. I retain them till today, as you can hear from my speech.
Sure.
I am better with bullets than with words. So interviews like this make me very nervous, but so just I
Well,
think it's the right
you're
thing to do, to talk about stuff, to let American people know the dangers of socialism and communism. So,
right. Well, you're doing a fantastic job. So you're
well,
self-taught. You taught yourself well.
thank you.
Um,
Actually, I have a tape. I'm going to post it online too on my website. When from the ceremony when I became U.S. citizen, the news network was there, and I asked them later for the tape. They sent me the tape from that ceremony, but I remember the interview later. They did interview me, and also like other people who became U.S. citizens on that day. And I remember I was so excited. I was trying to say things, so many things. I just couldn't express it very well. So the comment was, like some of these people are so excited to be Americans. They what they don't cannot do in English language, they can compensate with their excitement, and they show me.
that's
So yeah,
fantastic.
but I'm very proud of it. I have it on the tape, so I'm going to post it online on my website.
I can't wait. And when we talk about your book, remind me. I want to talk about your website too. Have you mentioned it so people can access that and take a look at that? Did you become a citizen in Memphis?
I became a U.S. citizen in Memphis, Tennessee. Yes,
Okay. All right.
and
Outstanding.
it was the time that first Persian War was starting, when the United States, when my America got involved in chasing the Iraqis out of Kuwait, and the war started. This is where I decided uh, to help and join military.
Well, that's perfect timing because I wanted to ask you what led you to joining the military? Can you share
Well,
that?
how can you not? I mean, think about it. everything that I have, everything that I own, my family, I owe to America and American people. So when America went to war, I always believe that you need to support your country. And the best way for me to do it, the most efficient way for me to support my America was to join military. So I volunteered for the Navy. I didn't know how to do it even. I didn't know how to do it at the time. I went to post office. I've seen these draft cards. Well, I forgot what you call it. You fill it out for the
Like an application?
it's not application. It is the registration for rent
Oh,
for
selective
selective
service?
rent, selective service
Yeah.
document. So I fill it up. I thought that's contract. So I fill it up and say I'm ready to go and serve America. I'm American citizen. So I send it off to them and say went back to my apartment. At this time I was living with fellow skydiving buddies. So I start packing myself. It's like, where are you going? Are you moving out? I say, yeah, I'm going to war. I will fight for America. It's like, wait a minute, wait a minute. You cannot just live like that. So we had a talk. They explained it to me how to really join America. I actually that like maybe 3 weeks later, I got a letter from military that I'm too old for this selective service.
Selective service, yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to I don't need to fill it up. So I said, well, okay, so I guess there was a long application. So, okay, so I was instructed to go to recruiting office. So for me at the time, I didn't distinguish between Navy, Air Force. For me, everything was military. Everything was Army. So I went to Army office, filled the paperwork, explained them why I want to join the military, and I was only concerned the war may end before I would be able to fight in the war. So I was trying to ask, can you guys do as quick as possible so I can be part of that. And
Wow.
but then I met Navy SEALs. I was a skydiving instructor at the same time in Memphis, in the West Tennessee skydiving at the time. So these guys, one of these guys, I just reconnected together. I just reconnected with him online, Tim O'Hara. So Tim was one of the Navy SEALs at the time who actually talked me into changing the documents from the application to Army to apply for the Navy. So I talked to these guys. I like these guys. I say, okay, well, I'm going to do that. It was kind of awkward for me, but because I made friends with those Army recruiters, but I
Right.
decided to do it. So I went up there and got all my documents. They were almost all, everything was completed, and I gave
Sounds
it to
like it
the
was the
Navy.
right decision.
Well, yeah, it was the right decision. Of course, service is service. It doesn't really matter if you serve in the Navy, Army, Coast Guard, or Marines. It is something proud, and you serve the country. So for me, it really didn't really matter that much. I just like these guys, and I figured out maybe especially if they were skydiving, so maybe I can use my skydiving skills in the military too. So I switched and joined the Navy.
Was your
And
motivation when you joined, was your motivation to specifically get involved in special forces in the SEALs, or was it to just generally join the military at that point?
No, I didn't care where I will serve. I wanted to serve where America needs me. So it didn't really matter to me. To become a SEAL, yeah, that was a groovy. That was like, hey, you know what, icing on the cake. But that was not what drove me. That was not why I joined military. It
Yeah.
happened that eventually I became a Navy SEAL. I'm very proud of it. But again, that's not why I joined military.
Okay. What was your when you got in and completed your initial training, what were you, and again, I'm not a military guy, so I apologize if I use the wrong terminology. What was your initial assignment? What did you do when you first started in the Navy?
So, well, the first time when I show up with them and I say, like, if possible, I would like to be sent to Navy SEAL training, but I would like to serve wherever in the unit that goes to combat first. So wherever you guys need me. And that the process of joining SEAL teams was different then than it is now. At that time, like they look at me and say, like, well, you are too old. You are like 32, going 33 years old. So if you join the Navy, the SEALs are out of reach. But if you sign this paper here, go to boot camp, they will make you a SEAL. It's like, it really didn't matter to me. I say, I want to join the military. I will sign it. So I signed
Sure.
this. So at that time, I went to boot camp. After boot camp, I choose because I could choose which school, Navy school, I would go to. I choose parachute rigging school. Since I was working with parachutes, I didn't understand what the job was, but I was thinking parachute rigger, so something close, I guess.
Right.
So I signed up for parachute rigging school. So after boot camp, I was sent to school to Millington, to parachute rigging school, that PR school. And
Okay.
but also in boot camp, I took the test for Navy SEALs. I was too old, but I said, well, why not? I try, I volunteer. I just couldn't wait for the test to come in. It happened that I passed the test. The problems with the swim, I never seen the ocean in my life. So
Oh, wow.
I was like, I could swim only on one side too, and without mask, but I passed the test. Then it turned out I had a kidney stone, so I was told that, well, in your age, most likely you will never make the SEAL teams because you have to have like I think year or 2 years waiting time. After the kidney stone, you cannot just go into training, into selection. So I say, okay, well, this not, again, I just wanted to serve. So I say, okay. But then when I went to Millington to PR school, there was an actually real Navy SEAL, and Les Barrios. He's no longer with us. Rest in peace, brother. But so I went to him. I said, is anything can be done? Maybe some magic waiver or something.
Right.
He says, okay, well, bring me your medical record. That was before the electronic medical records. So he gave me a special request. I went to clinic on base. They gave me my medical record. I went to his office. He told me to leave to the office, wait outside. And I was like trying to listen to what's going on. And he calls me a little bit later and said, okay, come in. Show me where is that thing about your kidney stone. I was like, okay, it's right here. So we started looking for it. I said, I don't see it. He said, well, I cannot find it. Are you sure you had a kidney stone? He looks at me. By this time, I was sure that I did not. So I said, okay, I didn't have a kidney stone. All right. So we're going to put the request and you pass the test. I passed the test again in Millington. And this time I already met some of the fellow Navy friends. One of them was Jason Cabell, today is movie producer and director. But at that time, we were together. We had no idea what the Navy SEALs are, but we practiced, tried to swim the best we could. So, and he was so sure he's going to make through SEAL training that I look at him, I say, this guy can hardly swim and stay on the surface. So if he can make it, I'm sure I can make it too. He made it. So did I. So we eventually, he got orders to BATS, to selection. I got order to selection like maybe a month later because I think the process took longer with the waiver. And eventually I end up with him in SEAL training. We both made it.
That's a great story. Let me ask this. SEAL training, and I don't want to drill down and get into all of it, but I just had a general question about it based off your experiences in Poland and being imprisoned and being legitimately tortured and having to endure and go through that. Do you think that helped you go through and pass SEAL military training and SEAL training?
Well, I say it a little bit differently. And you're right. When I was coming to SEAL training, I didn't know anything about it. I thought it would be like a prison time for 6 months of the selection. We would be locked out, isolated in one place, and we will just conduct the training and selection. And when I came up there, I find out that that's not so, that actually after the day is over, whether it is, sometimes you work 24 hours a day, you train 24 hours a day, but there was some, most of the time, or maybe often, after the training was done for a day, you were cut loose to go home, to go do whatever you wanted to do. Like go to barracks where you stay. Like I initially stay in the barracks. Eventually, my wife came in, so I moved with her in the small apartment in San Diego. But yeah, so that was kind of a big surprise for me. Another one I was what was not surprise for me was the harsh treatment. I expect that. I remember going to the training. I I figure out I survive communist prison. I think I can survive. I will survive the thing.
Right.
I was more worried more about more. I was worried more about being good enough to make to the training and being injured. I was not worried about quitting or something. That never crossed my mind. I remember during the Hell Week, one of the we all had to answer in the class and the why we are here in BATS, what was our goals are. So I was hearing my fellow SEALs saying, "Yeah, I want to try to be the best. I came to try to give my best. I came to try." The common word, not always, but common word was, "I came to try." So when I was asked that question, I said, "I think I'm here to try shit. I came here to become a SEAL. I will leave this place as a SEAL, and as I get injured, or maybe if I'm not good enough, you guys kick me out. But I'm not trying here. I'm becoming a SEAL." And of course, I got a little bit punished, but not the bad way. There's like the instructors like that, and
Right.
so that was my answer. I didn't go there to try to be a SEAL. I went there to become Navy SEAL,
You
and
set your
of course,
goal, you set your mind to it, and you knew you were going to do it, is what it sounds like.
well, yeah, you're never good enough up there. There's something that you cannot prepare yourself enough. There is never, no matter how well you are prepared, there is no walk on the easy walk. It's hard work, and you are being tested every day. And it was harsh for me too. But like the things that never bother me is the screaming, yelling, the harsh treatment. Because I used to be beat up in Poland, and I thought that was normal. So here, nobody is beating me up, nobody is trying to kill me. So I guess I'm all right.
You're
And
like, this is easy.
well, it was not easy, but
Right.
it was nothing that. I remember with the swim when I went to swim. Me and my friend Jason Cabell were practicing it, but it was never enough. And what I didn't know is that you had to swim in mask. I never swam in mask. So when I in the pool, we start doing the laps in the preparation, the initial training. I was drowning. I couldn't breathe. And I remember I was seeing the black spots in front of my eyes, but I told myself I'm not going to quit. If I pass out, there are instructors there and there's medics, so they're gonna revive me. They will bring me back. So I'm not going to quit. And the first swims, the first days was very hard. I was coming like maybe 10 pounds heavier out of the pool because of the water I swallow. But then it became easier and easier. By the end of this preparatory phase, actually I was asked to demonstrate how to swim the side stroke to new people who just came into that preparatory time in BATS. So I guess it was great. It was a great accomplishment for
Yeah.
me. So instructor
Sounds
selected
like
me
it.
to demonstrate how to swim. So yeah.
Yep. Wow. Well, so you complete your training. Excuse me. You complete your training. Where, where, how long before you actually are sent to a conflict? Is that a fair question?
At that time, the question could be also asked, how long did it take you to become a SEAL and receive the 5326 NEC and Trident, the
Yes.
SEAL
Yes.
insignia? So today is a little bit different because today you go to that selection course, that's 6 months. Usually takes longer because you get injured or roll back, but the time frame usually is 6 months. Then you go to SQT, so you go to advanced SEAL training. I think you go to jump school maybe before that. I don't remember now how it is structured now. It was years ago. So after you complete your jumps in Army school, then you complete your SQT SEAL qualification training, you are automatically awarded the Trident, and you received the 5326 NEC, the SEAL designation. And so, that's different than what I went through. In my times, in 1990s, that was you, after graduation from the selection from the BATS, you went to jump school, the jump training. Then you went to SEAL teams, and then you were waiting for your STT class. So you could SEAL advanced training. So like today, I think it will be SQT. At that time, we call it STT, SEAL tactical training. You completed your SEAL tactical training. Then you were assigned to SEAL platoon on probationary period. So then you had to do everything that you're required to do in a SEAL platoon, but also prepare yourself for the board, where master chiefs, advanced SEALs, and officers, they tested your knowledge. You were graded on your practical knowledge within the SEAL platoon. You were on probationary period, but also you had to pass the test, the verbal test, so the knowledge test. And after that, only after you pass that test, and your SEAL platoon say yay or nay, they say yes, then you are awarded SEAL insignia 5326 NEC, and then you become a SEAL. But you are still a new guy. The FNG means like fucking new guy. So basically you were do the man. You had to do whatever you were required to do by the SEAL platoon. You have to be successful in it. And there's a lot of people who made through all this process, but then within the SEAL platoon, the teammates decide, well, you don't cut, you don't make this, you are not the right person, and you were removed from the SEAL team. You were sent to the fleet, or in some cases out home if you didn't want to go to the fleet. But that was the process then. It is different now. Seems maybe more simpler, but I don't think it's any easier, because there is so much things that you have to learn, so much things you are being tested, that by the time you do receive the Trident after SQT, I think you are much better prepared than we were when we were leaving the BATS training. So, so this is some. It's hard for me to judge which system is better. I like mine because there was a lot of sweat, and I mean, not less. These guys who graduate today, they are also put as much work as I did before, but just the system is different. I cannot tell if it's better or not, but definitely I can say it is different. And I have respect for the guys graduating today.
That makes sense. So where do you go from there? You complete all that, you make it through,
so
you get a thumbs up from...
Yeah, I was assigned from SEAL team to SEAL team 2. Actually, my idea was I was reading all the books while in the training. I wanted to go to SEAL team 4. I was thinking jungle warfare, all that stuff. So I put my request. I initially wrote SEAL team 4, but I met a friend up there who was going to SEAL team 2, and he said, well, with your languages, because I speak Polish, I speak Russian, well, I speak Japanese too. So speaking the Polish and Russian especially, you'll be much more useful in the SEAL Team 2, which AO at the time was Europe. So I say, okay, well, I changed if you guys think it's better there, I did that. So I changed my request for SEAL Team 2. This is where I eventually ended up. And so, yeah, I changed SEAL Team 2. Of course, I received the formal at the time, welcome to SEAL Team 2. And today we would call it maybe kind of, what would be the good, hazing maybe? I don't want to use that word because of this upon today.
But you were welcomed.
Yeah, I was welcome to SEAL Team 2 in the old fashion. And then I was sent to, I had to wait for my class in STT, like SEAL Tactical Training, the advanced training. After the SEAL Tactical Training, I came back. Eventually, I was placed in the SEAL platoon. during the World Cup, and eventually I and another student from my class, Danny, we both received the Trident on the same day, and the NEC 5326. That was a big day for me.
Um, I I can only imagine that.
And then, being in the platoon, doing normal workup, we eventually deploy. So my first deployment was to Italy, and it was the same time when the Persian War was already over. It was the time when our F-16 pilot got shot down over Yugoslavia. So our platoon was one of the units looking for him and trying to save him and bring him back home. It happened that different unit got to him first, but I'm proud to be part of that effort. So
Certainly, certainly. Where in how long are you in Team Two, and
I
then where
think I
do you
was
go
team two
from there?
around 8 years,
Okay.
and then usually the Navy moves you from one unit to another. The nice thing about the SEAL teams that, like when I had to move, because we were on deployment, it was with JACO deployment, was SEAL Team 2. When we were coming back, the transfers already happened, so I was assigned to SEAL Team 4. So all I had to do, just grab my guns, my bags, and my equipment and move to another building. That was my entire move. So
Uh,
SEALs can actually spend an entire career on one coast, often, not always, but often in the same place. So we just move from another East Coast team to another East Coast team, another East Coast team. But you can request to go to West Coast as well if there is a place, and they can send you to the West Coast. But like in my case, I just moved from SEAL Team 2 to SEAL Team 4.
okay.
And
Where what are some other deployments that you experienced?
so like the more memorable ones was
Sure.
with my deployments to Iraq, but even before that was deployment to Middle East. This is where we caught Russian tankers smuggling Iraqi oil overseas. So we were tasked with basically taking it down. We call it VBSS. I just call it we hijacked the tanker and turned it over to authorities with the stolen oil. So that was Mr. Queen F. Again, I need to get asking for permission to
Yeah.
say, but in grade officer, so Queen F, Lieutenant Queen F at the time, and Jacko was AOIC. We did hijack the Russian tanker. That was
Is that
before that yeah, before
is that
that was what
Jocko Willink?
it is Jacko Willing, yes.
Okay.
So he
Okay.
was my AOIC, he was platoon second in command. And under his tutelage, I became also kind of like had some expertise in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So it was
Oh,
extremely
wow.
effective fight. And he was a great teacher. He was great. He was great commander. I say he was great leader. Somebody like in the platoon we wanted to emulate. And so is Mr. Our lieutenant too, Mr. Queen F. Before that, we deployed to Bosnia to Yugoslavia. There was Mr. Bill B. I need to ask him to. I
Sure.
kind of connected with him on LinkedIn. Great officer, and a great chief. We had a great chief too. So there was great deployment. There's so many memorables, that after 20, 30 years later, they kind of they
Right.
blend things. But then in this deployment, I met one of the strongest guys in the team when his name is Chris, and we went to France, to Lorient, to France to exercise with the French commando, which didn't have were not very successful because these people turned out to be very tiny, very small. And Chris, when show up in the gym up there, he wrecked their entire gym and broke their equipment because the bars start bending and the plates fall over breaking. But there was the guys who were like ballerinas. They were doing these tight spandex, doing jumping jacks and doing those little 5 pounders. And me and Chris were looking at them and just thinking like, just put the tutu on them. They will look like ballerinas, and then they did look like that. So there's not
Wow.
much there. And they didn't like us. I think we didn't like them either. They didn't want to exercise with us. They were supposed to jump together, free fall together, and that did not happen because I guess they didn't want to do anything with us. Well, the film, I think the feeling was mutual. These guys were little tiny itsy bitsy guys who were maybe great swimmers, but at that time we didn't think much of them. So
Yeah.
that
They're not
was
very
the
strong, it
French,
sounds like.
yeah, that was the French equipment experience we had. One of these guys, I think, even asked Chris, because we're kind of big, over 200 pounds each in the SEAL platoon. He said, "How fast can you run?" We just look at him. Well, see, unlike you, we don't run away from the battlefield. So, yeah, you might practice that, but we practice to fight. And if you want to fight, I would glad to take on you.
That's a good
But they had
response.
no desire. They had no desire to fight us. So basically, when we walked into their gym, they just like stopped. They sat on the benches and they stared at us. They didn't. They stopped their exercises. They just stared at us like a bunch of I don't
Wow.
know what to say.
Let me ask this. Speaking of other countries and their special forces, how does it typically work when you're in conflict? Say you're in Iraq and SEALs are there. Grom is there. Is it SAS? The other countries, their special forces are there during conflict. Who ultimately is in charge of all those? Or do they operate on missions independently, or is there an overseeing group or individual that gives instructions and
There is
issues
overseeing.
assignments?
There is overseeing. There's a chain of command, and in my case, like when we were working with Police Special Forces, grown, excellent guys, and very well trained. So we had a similar same chain of command, but now they had their own chain of command, and we had our own of command. The thing what was for me very unusual there is that the connections that we make with police special forces, I mean, we were working, eventually we were operating as one unit. There was like no much difference. These guys were doing the same thing we do, and observing them is just their tactics, their weapons, their equipment was, if not identical, was very similar to us, or identical in many cases. So there was not like, I remember sometimes on the radio I got the call, hey, this guy's up there on the corner, is it our guy or is it Grom guy? It's like, dude, I can't tell it because we look the same. They look the same like us. Their
Okay.
mentality is the same. Their approach to warfare is the same. I recently went to Poland because I was awarded the highest military medal that Poland can award to foreigners, and so there was a gold military medal, and I look at these new guys, new Grom guys who were at the presentation too. I tell you, they don't look different than any of our guys here in sales. The same
Wow.
approach, the same mentality. You can feel the strength. You can feel the mental prowess and also the physical strength. You can see it. The same with our guys. It's just like
Right.
if there were like two guys in the bar, you wouldn't. If you didn't hear them speaking languages, you wouldn't know who is who.
Wow. That's a striking
So that
similarity,
was,
it sounds
for
like.
me, it was a great honor. I was able to, serve on in both do the DA missions with our guys with Grom, and I love that double dipping. I would say, but I learned a lot, and the exchange was pretty much mutual. There's not only that we were showing them things, but we are also learning from these guys too. There's many things that they brought to the table that make us better commandos. So that was great experience for me, and something I'll be always hold close to
Was
my
that
heart.
was that satisfying for you coming from Poland in the manner that you did, and then being an American and then working with those
was
guys?
something
Was
I would
that?
never, yeah, something I would never expect. That
Yeah.
because remember when I was leaving Poland, I was saying goodbye to Poland forever. I never thought I would be even allowed to come in, and here I go. I'm being greeted in Poland as a American citizen, as a respected citizen, American citizen, as a respected person. It was something I would never think would ever happen, but yes, yes, it did. So.
Yeah.
It is great, great to know it, great to think. People ask me sometimes if I would ever move back to Poland. I say no. America is my country, and this is where I live, and this is where I will die. But this is where my family stays, so and lives. So, but yeah, I have those questions, but there's only one answer to it. I'm
Yep.
American.
Yep. Well, you have a full military career. How many years were you in the
20
Navy?
years. 20 years.
So at some point, well, one thing before we move on, in your bio, you referenced breaching
Mhm.
and that you were heavily involved in that. Just
Yes.
for the listeners, the purpose of educating the listeners that might not be familiar with that, could you just give us a basic explanation of what
Sure. You
breaching
know,
is for military
yeah,
purposes?
I cannot go into the details here because
Sure. Just
but
whatever you could.
so my job basically was to get the team in the structure or in the place where it was not easily accessible. Let's say in the building, through the door, through windows, to the walls. Sometimes, as my book actually has that image, one of the doors I created in the wall, through ceiling or through the floors. So my task was to create this entry point and allow my team to go and assault the targets through that entry point. And of course, you know, after your breaching charge goes off, the entryway is open. You assault the target with your team. So it just you have to have that expertise to know how to do it, how much of it, and make sure that this is safe for the for your team. But also, you don't want to kill innocent people on target, especially the targets that we were assaulting. The most of them contained non-combatants, women and children. So that specialized charge you read in the beginning will help us actually gain access through the doors, blast the doors, still have the benefit of the concussion on the terrorists, but without killing innocent civilians, without harming the civilians. So
Sure.
that was very, very useful. But you know,
There's a
so
science to it.
there is science to it, there are calculations to it, and they need to be, you have to have that expertise, you have to be expert to be able to calculate how close you can come up to this charge without hurting yourself and your team. So, but you know, this is like we SEALs are being trained in it. It's just like it was another specialty in the SEAL teams, like sniper, you know, the diving jump master. So you are a breacher, and your team relies on you to gain that access to the target area. So
Okay.
that's what I did. So yeah, I'm
Do
very proud
you
of it.
Yeah, I mean that I'm again not a military guy, but that seems like an integral part of getting the job done.
Yes, it is. But you know what? My I think one of the moments I'm very proud of it is during the assault. We on the target. We had a guy. I was on one corner, and I had a counterpart on my right side. We're looking down the hallway, and we see the guy, four legs coming up in the darkness with the light. We see the guy with the gun, old man in the like a pajamas up to his cuffs, with this funny hat, you know, with this little ball on the end of it. It's
Hmm.
almost like from the cartoon,
Like
holding,
a movie or something. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, holding his old wife. I look at this guy. He was like around I would say like 90 years old. Maybe not that old, but he was old. These flip flops. They both in the flip flops. This guy is holding gun. And I hear my counterpart say, "Drop the gun, drop the gun." The guy is just so scared. I don't think he can, even if you tell him in Arabic, he would not understand. And I had another guy come low the corner. He didn't see it there. So at this point, I was thinking this guy is going to get shot. So I stepped in front of these guns, and I had my M4 pointed in his heart, and I walked to this guy, and just like say, "Hey, calm down, give me that gun." I reached for his gun. He was shaking and he was pissing himself at the same time, and slowly I took this gun away from him, and we waved him in, and so basically we got the guy without killing him. We needed this guy anyway, but this is something that I got a lot of flack for it, and I understand why, and I don't know if I will do it second time. The problem was not the poor guy, because I could shoot him before he would pull the trigger. The problem was, what if there was somebody else behind him? If there was in those rooms or other terrorists, if they step in when I'm in the open, and they could kill us all. And I agree with this, but I don't know why I did it. Just something told me that this is the right thing to do. So I stepped this guy, because again, these guys were, I could almost hear the click, and then of the guy at the bottom. So when I step in front of these guys, I kind of obscure their field of fire, but make this guy safe. We got this guy, we took this guy, we hauled him out of the target, but his wife later came in and she was crying and say that she could speak English. He didn't speak English. But so she said, "Thank you for not killing him."
Wow.
We didn't.
Sometimes
Sometimes you do what you need to do.
compassion, yeah, sometimes compassion is necessary,
But
is
don't
what
take
it
me wrong.
sounds like.
I believe the best way to fight war on terror is to terrorize the terrorists. I am terrorist terrorizer. We are terrorist terrorizers, and I have no qualm to go and dispatch a guy who needs to be gone. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
the way I look at it is more like the government customer service. But my customers are always wrong, and I got to kill them. So
Right. That's a great way to look at it. That is a great way to look at it. So, but while you're in the military, don't you, it's at some point you meet your wife, right? And you start a family.
yes,
I can't remember I can't remember if I heard the story or if I read the story. I don't know if
yes,
you even want to, I don't even know if you even want to go through that, but
yeah, sure. Why not?
okay, you'd share that.
It's
Yeah.
it's in the book in more details, but
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
eventually I made the full circle from the selection in BATS. I came back to BATS as a SEAL instructor. So there was at the time when I realized my time in the teams is coming to the end slowly. I will have to leave the military. I will have to leave the Navy and start my civilian life. And at that time, I had no family. My only family I had was my fellow SEAL brothers. So I was thinking, like, I need to find myself a wife. And so I asked my friends for help. Say, "Do you know somebody?" And first, they had to dress me up, because I was still dressed up in like, well, my dress was either jeans, white t-shirt, white socks, and tennis shoes. Or if I wanted to be fancy, I had a black t-shirt and black jeans and black tennis shoes. So that
Yeah.
was it. So
Yeah.
teammate, I talked to him. He's okay. He told me he's okay to use his name. Joe Lambert. He took me and said, "Drago, you need to go, and you cannot find a girl like looking like a bomb. Well, let's go buy you some clothes." And that was after the actual incident, because we were invited by some Hollywood bigwigs for the party. And so me, Joe, some other guys, and are waiting at the door. We ring the door. This old wrinkled up lady opens up. So we are all in smiles, trying to be nice. Like, so we came to this and this person. We are invited to the party. She said, "Okay, come in." But then she looked at me and say, "Wait a minute, who is that?" So like they say, "Well, he's with us. He's a great guy." Wait, that's not the party for druggies and bombs. You guys not coming in. And shut the door. I was like, whoa,
Oh
that was
man.
harsh. So I said,
Yeah.
look, guys, I just go to I go to the bar, you know, just there's a bunch of team guys. I'm sure some were partying. I joined them. You guys go, don't let a bomb be on your way to have a good party and mingle up with the Hollywood elites.
Right.
So, but it's like Joel and other guys, like, fuck these old ladies. Let's go to the bar together and party. Fuck this Hollywood shit. So we left and party all day. Actually, Joel, I think, win the sushi competition. So we ate for quite some time free sushis on his coast because he was getting them for free. So he was a great operator, a good SEAL, great teammate. He eventually had a lead role in discovery programs about the military channel and the evasion and escape channel
Oh,
that
wow.
on Discovery Channel. So
That's pretty impressive.
yes, even my daughter was watching on Discovery Channel. She called him Joel the Explorer. She even wrote the pictures. She was like maybe 5 years old. So she wrote the picture of Joel the Explorer. I still have them, the pictures by my daughter. She liked to watch that.
Yeah.
Joel Lambert.
uh,
You see it, brother?
there
Cheers.
you go. There you go. So they dress you up. They eventually get your clothes straightened
Well, yeah,
out,
but they
get
told
you.
me also, yeah, but they told me to go online and find some chick. That's how they describe it. Find yourself a girl, and you will be okay. And then we always are standing by to help you. If you need some problem, if you have a problem with wardrobe, we'll help you out too. So by this time, Joel dressed me up, went to the store, he bought all the clothes for me. So I was like, now there's no chick that can resist me. I'm look like
Exactly.
a Gucci guy now. So so I went online, and that didn't work well because some of those girls were frauds. Well, my frauds. They were just, they tried to present themselves the best they could. And I had the case where this girl show up, which, like, she was the picture, she looked like a model, but then when she show up, she looked like the Jabba the Hutt. And so
Uh,
I was nice to her,
sure.
but she called for another date. And I say, well, you know what? There's no another date. If you are honest with me, we could be friends. So who can be your friends? I say, no, because you lie to me. And I choose my friends. And I maybe shouldn't say that because I use the same the trick on my wife. Eventually, I learned. So the, that didn't work out. So I was looking, and I found this girl. I found this girl online. The site name was American Singles. So
Okay.
and I remember I signed up for it. I meet this girl online. I sent her a wink. She didn't answer. Another wink. Eventually, she answered, showed me like some letter, short letter. So now, me with my English, I can communicate on the battlefield very effectively, but talking about the touchy-feely things is really not my forte.
Emotions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
emotions, loving, and all that stuff.
Right.
I'm better now. I have been fully domesticated now, but by my wife. But at that
There you
time, so
go.
I ran up to my family that I have, the only family I had at the time, my fellow SEAL brothers, and asked them to help me ginned up the letter to her. So they wrote the letter. I sent back. She didn't like it, so we started writing. She wrote the letter. I ran to the team guys, and they say, "Hey, write me a love letter." So they kept writing the love letters for me. But eventually they got tired of it too. I guess, say, Drago, we wrote you like dozens, hundreds of those. All you need to do now is copy and paste, and you'll be okay. We are
Ah,
standing by
make
to
your
help you.
own.
Yeah, so I did, and her profile disappeared. So I was like, well, something is right here. So of course
Hmm.
I turned back to my family sales. They they read it. It's like, dude, you fucked up. That's not good. I don't even know what you got. And her profile was gone. So I was like mopping around. I was sad, I guess. I have to look for another wife, I guess. So
Hmm.
then her profile showed up maybe like a week later, maybe 2 weeks later. And so I seen it. I started writing to her immediately, and eventually I convinced her to call me. So the call came in. I already knew there was her because the private call. So
Uh,
she called me. We talked. I remember her first words. Rachel, her name. She said like, "Well, so you are not on drugs. You're not drunk. You just don't speak English." I was like, "Yes, yes, yes." So
that's my excuse.
yeah, yeah. So we start talking, and eventually, yeah. I I asked her to come to visit me in San Diego, and she did come in San Diego, and I remember from my previous experience with a very very I would say powerful, huge girl. So I took a fellow SEAL teammate with me. I said, look, if this is another case like that, just tell her I went to war or something. They sent me to war, so I'm
You
not
had to
here.
go.
Yeah, yeah. So you can bail me out. So I remember we were waiting there, and here because I was bragging about her pictures. So we had the picture, and in San Diego, we're downstairs. She's just got on the escalator. So we're like, yeah, that's her. He said, dude, she's way younger than you. How did you pull it off? Did you just rub the cradle? I was like, dude, you were writing the love letters. I lied about my age, so it worked. And so yeah, so she came in, and I was so stressed out. So that was another case where actually stressed me out more than combat. But uh, I remember sticking my hand out to her and say, "I am Drago," and she looks at me. Okay, I didn't come here 2,000 miles flying just to shake your hand, give me a hug. I was like, oh wow, that was easier than I
Well,
thought.
that's a good
Like you
sign.
got a big Drago hug. But then, like she looked at me and she's like, I think I know you. For a team guy like me, for SEAL, if you hear, you see the girl who you don't recognize, but
Mhm.
she says she knows you, could be pretty scary experience. I was just thinking, did I do
Right,
something to her?
right.
But she said, no. Yeah, she's like, look at me, say, I think you were the guy in the chamber when you guys were the new guy with the SEALs. You came for the evaluation for the HAPS training, the higher altitude parachute, high altitude parachute simulation. So yeah, so actually she met me years ago when I was going through, I was still new SEAL, going through the chamber ride for the before being allowed to do the free fall parachuting. So she
Wow.
remembered me from there, and then it went on. So I said, "Oh, that's very bad. That's a good reason to remember me."
Yeah.
But she said, "Well, not quite so, because you were the test subject. Because we're like I think maybe 10, maybe 12 guys, if I remember. I can't remember. And most of this from my SEAL platoon. So when we were asked who is going to volunteer to demonstrate the TUC, I mean the usefulness of your how long you can be conscious
Sure.
uh, in these conditions.
Before you lose
Yeah, yeah, how
consciousness.
long you can
Okay.
control yourself. So everybody's like, yeah, that guy, that's new guy right there. So I say, okay. So we went to like 25,000 feet, simulating 25,000 feet. I was told to take my mask off, and then I had to write my name. Had a little ball with the square and round holes, and I had to put the like round peg in the round hole, square peg in the square hole, and I started messing up. So these guys started egging me and started laughing at me. They all had a mask. I didn't know who was saying this. I had I had the earphones, but I didn't have a mask. But I started cussing everybody. I'm going to kill you. I'm going, you bastards, you this. So, and then I was embarrassed. But I guess the Air Force people, they were very excited because they have, on the demonstration videos that they show us, they have every symptom of hypoxia except the being belligerent. I was the first one who gave them good demonstration of belligerency, how they can cause being belligerent. So that I'm sure the video exists somewhere there, and I am on it cussing and raving and trying to threatening
You're the
everybody.
how-to video of being
Yeah, the how
belligerent.
to, yeah. So there's every aspect of this hypoxia they had on the video, except the belligerency. So they got on me. So this is what she
Wow.
remembers me. And eventually, we got married and started
And
dating each
and
other, visiting each other.
and how long have you guys been married?
Since 2017. I don't like those questions because there's like I'm thinking
Oh,
my
that's
mind is
like,
somewhere else. You ask these
yeah.
questions, and my wife, let's see if
I
I
think it's
miss it.
fair to say you've been married for quite a while. We'll say
Yeah, for
that.
quite a while.
Yeah.
2017. Yeah. But if I
All
say
right.
it wrong, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely. Definitely.
I'm, I'm,
And
I'm-
you guys have some
yeah.
kids?
Yes, we do have it. We have two kids together, a 16 years old girl and a 15 years old boy. So I'm very proud of them. Gracie, now we are teaching her how to drive. So I'm pretty scared.
Wow.
Dorian, he does gymnastics. He's doing extremely well there. I'm very proud of them. And with the kids, this is actually funny because when my Gracie was maybe like I think 8 years old or something, we had a game, and you are supposed to assign to each player character. So they assigned themselves character, then assigned to Rachel one character, and now they're thinking what character to assign me. So I'm saying maybe this warrior here. So the answer they both like no. That is very smart, but he's not very brave. So it cannot be him because that is always like I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of Gracie does. I was so protective of them that like make sure that this is safe. Make sure this is safe. So they say, well,
Yeah.
Dad is afraid of everything that we do. So he's not very brave, I guess. So we gave him some different figure to be. So yeah, they didn't know
That's
that I'm
it.
SEAL. I think they just recently, after my book, realized that they knew I was in the Navy, and I'm very proud of it. I didn't
Yeah.
feel explaining them any more than that. But after the book, they understand now that what I was doing in the Navy. I'm proud of it.
That's absolutely. That's cool. That's cool. Well, so you retire after 20 years in the
Tears.
military, in the Navy. And
Yes.
how did you feel once you retired? I know a lot of people have a hard time adjusting to retirement. How was it for you? Were you like, "Oh, I did my time. It's good to be retired," or how how did you how did it go for you?
Yeah, so the adjustment, some people adjust very easily, very quickly. Some people take longer. For some people, it is a nightmare. But please remember, in the SEAL teams, we don't really learn a lot of skills that can be easily adapted in civilian world. The leadership is one that we can, yeah, we really excel in this field. But a lot of the other stuff is like, I could be maybe good Kmart guard, but what else could I do? And this is why many people, there's nothing wrong with being Kmart guard.
Right,
This
right,
is, if there was the job available to me, if I was doing it, I would be extremely proud of it. But, this
right.
is whatever it is. Some people eventually, uh, some of those who have a hard time finding place in a peaceful society after the military career, they end up back into the contracting in the work
Hmm.
similar to what they used to do in SEAL teams. And this is, some people like it, but some people have no choice. I hear, because of the charity that I part of Navy SEALs Fund, NavySealsFund.org, the charity I'm exposed to some of those problems. So I cannot bring the names, I cannot bring the
Right.
particular individuals, but it's quite common that a view that, okay, I go to contracting for maybe 3 months, 4 months, save the money, and I will have so much money that then I can coast, I can start looking for civilian job. Well, usually when you come back it happens very often when you come back from overseas, eventually your money are gone, your family is pissed off, and you have no prospect on a normal job because you cannot find it. So what do? Well, go back in the contract. Let me do it again. Let me make more money. Come back, then I will find a job because I will have a lot of reserves. The reserves are gone, and a lot of people struggle with it. So what we needs to be done is give them some people who have a hard time getting out, give them the opportunity in civilian world where they can actually where they can succeed, where they don't have to go to back into that melee, back into that job they just got out of. So this is very important that people allow military such an opportunity, and the society helps them so they don't have to go back into the war.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. For you,
Yeah, for me it was kind of a little bit easier because while in the Navy I was already fascinated by computers, by programming. For me, always was a great adventure, solving the puzzle, solving the problems. We SEALs are problem solvers, but I went to a different level even. So solving problems with software as well. And then eventually, before the end of my career, I went to Bellevue University and got classes. I finished all upper courses in the software development. So for me, it was easier. So when I came in, I really didn't know how to go about finding a job. Of course, in the Navy puts you to the classes. They just dump you on the outside the gate and say, okay, go fend for yourself. The Navy has a process, and I went through this process. So I could find a job, but it was pretty scary to me. I rely a lot on my wife because she helped me write the resume. I had my resume, but she corrected it, make it look better. Then she kind of helped me where to look for the job. The only thing what she told me is, okay, do not accept the first offer, have a chance to negotiate. So we'll see. So when you go up there for the interview, they offer you a job, say politely, thank you, but you want to think about it. Well, I went up there, I got the job, I agreed to everything, and I came back with the job. And so she was kind of like, maybe you can get more. The pay was really good, so I was like,
that's good.
I'll take it. She said, you can get more.
It worked out.
Yeah, so I said, okay, next time I will do it.
Yeah.
So that's how I started in software engineering. And so it is.
And you
I
enjoy that, or
I
it
still
sounds
enjoyed
like.
it, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It
Yeah.
wasn't,
And so in retirement, software engineering and your Navy SEALs fund and
yes.
your Connect
So
Zing. You want to talk
connecting.com,
about
yes.
those?
Yes, absolutely. So Navy SEALs Fund, I've seen the guys, like you mentioned earlier, some people are struggling with the transition. Some people have problems. And very often the problem is like, wow, if I could just get over this hump and pay this bill right here, maybe I'm fine because I have a job waiting for me next month. But now if I don't, they're going to take my house away or I'm going to lose this and that. So sometimes, in some cases, we just look into the SEAL situation and say, okay, well, we're going to help you. We're just going to pay your mortgage. We're going to bring you up to speed with your mortgage so you concentrate on your job, concentrate on paying your bills on time. Also, we help with getting that financial counseling for our guys. But the most of that is just most important things that Navy SEALs Fund does is we don't have a lot of red tape. We can dispatch help within hours. For example, we got a gal who had a SEAL, former SEAL, who was disabled in one of the Honduras islands. And with low on funds, they just told him, well, you need to pay or we need to remove you from the hospital. And he was paralyzed, partially paralyzed. And he couldn't find any help, like nobody wanted to help him. Eventually the call came to us and we say, okay, well, we're gonna go and send a helo for you, get you out of that and bring you to VA. And we did. So working on my website, we have the actual guy who is responsible for these flights. He has his own company flying people for medical reasons. So he flew to that island, pick him up, and the next day he was in the VA hospital. So that was like very quickly, within I think 24 hours, Another case, working with another charity, we were able to deliver the medicine to COVID medicine to one of our guys, basically in very bad shape in hospital. For that medicine, there was a Silent Warrior Foundation. That's Dave Hall is another my teammate who is running that foundation. We got together. They provide the flight. Rachel because it was Thanksgiving Day. Rachel connected the CEO of that company in Sweden. Then we connected with Israel with the officials from Israeli part of that company, and LA where the pharmacist was. So Rachel organized the conference call with Israel, Sweden, and with Sweden or Norway, and LA. We get online. The pharmacist was instructed to go to get that medicine, go to the airport. Dave Hall had already lined up airplane. It flew to LA. That pharmacist handed the medicine. While this is happening, the medical doctor from Arizona that the medicine needs to get, he calls us again and asks for one more dose of that medicine because he has another patient who is not SEAL, but he's dying. So we got on the phone. The pharmacist was told to bring 2 sets of this medicine, and he delivered to the airport, private airport. The private plane flew back and delivered the medicine to a SEAL and the guy, and it was done within 18 hours. So we are very quick, and that's another thing that we do. We don't have a lot of red tape. We never ask our people that we help to go and vouch for us or to go make the posts or to use their names on social media, unlike some other people do. So we just work quietly but extremely effectively, and we can verify the need sometimes within an hour and get approved through the board of directors. So the charity Navy SEALs Fund is run by Navy SEALs who make decisions how to dispatch or what help to dispatch to people in need. But we have also civilian oversight, and we have our sponsors who are not SEALs. Some of them are not military, who are
advisors or board of trustees,
civilian board of advisors. Yeah.
There you go. That sounds like an outstanding organization. Efficient,
well, I think the most
effective, and worldwide.
That nobody gets paid. This is all done on voluntary basis. So there's no pay position within Navy SEALs Fund, and we manage. This is why we were one of very few charities during COVID times that did not scale down its operations. Because
sounds like you're doing great things. Keep up the good work on that. And then,
thank you.
How about your platform, ConnectZing?
Yes.
Yeah, connecting.
So as I mentioned earlier, I'm heavily censored by YouTube and by socialists and communists because the things that I expose about socialism are very inconvenient to certain party or to some circles here. So I'm being heavily censored, and I got sick and tired of it. So I created my own Facebook. And that's the platform that we don't censor people. Well, I'll say we don't have people promoting violence towards Americans. We don't have ayatollahs. We don't have terror groups, unlike on Facebook or unlike on LinkedIn, even where those people prominent in the terror groups are allowed to voice their opinions, or enemies of the United States allowed to voice their opinions on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. You don't find that on ConnectZing. So we are in that part. We are different, and we are not dependent. Yes, we are not. We don't depend on Amazon. We don't depend on any other infrastructure except our own. We own our data center. We own our servers, and we don't have oversight from YouTube and or Amazon, on Facebook. We remember what happened to Parler when they decide that there's too much freedom on that side. They shut down their infrastructures. They can't do it to us. So
Yep. Sounds like a good platform. All right. What I really want to talk about is your book. I found it interesting, very interesting, eye-opening. The Pledge to America, One Man's Journey from Political Prisoner to U.S. Navy SEAL. Can you tell us about that?
yes, so I wrote this book. My story was fairly well known in SEAL teams. And all my teammates were saying, dude, you need to write this story, you need to write this book. I was like, well, I'm not really eager to do so. I don't see the reason yet to write this book. I think a little bit more time to elapse and to pass before I can write this book. But then came the last administration, and it became really scary. And then I was start thinking, or I was seeing the trends going. So I figured out I need to actually write the book to not so much expose the socialism and communism, but book to give Americans different vantage point. For some of those, and I'm sure you met some Americans, especially younger generation, spitting on our flags, disparaging our country, and talking really bad things about America. So maybe they didn't see the America the way I see it. I wrote this book to give them that vantage point. Why overseas, most of the people see America as the shining light of freedom, as why this America is so great, unique, different country. And maybe this will also bring attention to the goodness of America to almost every American, because for many of people born here, being good citizen, being good person is so normal, it's so natural. They don't see it. It's transparent to them. And I think it is important that you step out of that shell and look at the good American, how good America is, how good American people are from outside, and see them maybe a little bit different. It gives you different vantage point, different view on America. And so I hope people read this, and I'm sure they will agree with me
Oh yeah,
about
it's very
America being great.
eye-opening.
Yes.
Yes, it's a very eye-opening book. And, like you said
So
earlier, we're covering a lot of topics here, but your book goes deeper in
yes.
more detail on many of these topics. So, I highly recommend it. It was a very interesting story, many stories within one book.
Thank you. As we have that book also in hard format, the hardcover format, with the dedication from the website. So you can actually purchase that book on our website, on my website, with the with, sign
I'll
autographed
I'll
book.
I'll put your website in the show notes when this is released. Do you want to
Thank you.
tell listeners what your website is?
Thank you. DragoDzieran.com, just like my name,
Okay,
DragoDzieran.com. So
perfect.
I would appreciate
Perfect.
that.
Is there anything we've talked quite a while here? Is there anything that you wanted to circle back on or comment further, or are you pretty comfortable with the conversation that we had today?
Um, yes, I would like to say it again. I will always say until end of my life, until as long as I'm alive. Uh, I would like to say thank you to American people for my American dream, because my chance to live as a free man is only possible because of the ideals the founding fathers fought for, and that have been carried forward to this day by Americans like you.
Well said. That is well said. I just want to thank you for taking the time today to share your story. It was uh, fascinating, but more importantly than sharing your story today, I want to thank you for defending America, coming to America and defending our freedoms. And I'm proud to have you as a fellow American. And I just wanted to thank you. It's an honor to have that conversation with you today.
Jim, I really appreciate that, but also please remember that we all serve America. Maybe not, it doesn't have to be military, like in my case. Just being good citizen is serving America. But also, I would like to say thank you to law enforcement officers because we can live in safe community because of that. But also, I recognize that when I go on the battlefield, I spend the time up there and come back. You guys, law enforcement, they go to fight for our safe community every single day, and you don't know how the day may end. So you guys don't have that break that we have in military. You are in combat, I would say, every day, and it's my utmost respect to you guys.
I appreciate you mentioning that and acknowledging that. That is very, very nice to hear. So I appreciate that. Well, I think that kind of concludes our conversation for today. Again, I
Thank you so
thank you.
much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Keep up the great work. And I'm going to transition to my listeners here real quick. I just want to thank you for listening. And just again, I'd like to ask you to continue to like, follow, and share and subscribe my social media so I can bring fascinating and interesting individuals to the show like Drago. So thank you to my listeners as well, and everybody stay safe out there. The Right to Remain Silent podcast is brought to you by Streetwise 360 Studios. I would like to again thank today's guest for sharing the story right here on the podcast. Please remember to like, follow, share, and recommend us so that I can continue to bring you high caliber guests sharing their experiences just like we heard today. If your law enforcement agency is interested in training provided by Streetwise 360, or if you know someone that has an interesting law enforcement story to share, please contact me via the website, www.streetwise-360.com, www.streetwise-360.com.